And since it is past 2 o'clock, I think I'll go ahead and start. Looks like I'm actually got I'm a little, there it is. I hope I'm clear. Welcome today. We're recording this presentation or seminar. And today's presentation, it's sponsored by the Mastiff Club of Florida, is Dog Show 101, Counting Points. So today, what the purpose of this seminar is, it's for both new and experienced people to understand the following concepts. What is the purpose of a conformation show? Common terminology used in shows. Understanding how dog shows operate and understanding how to count points. And this is going to be a fairly open presentation, so if there are questions, just bring them right up. So what's the purpose of an AKC conformation dog show? Well, according to the AKC website, well, a conformation, the official term for a dog show is conformation. It is the act of conforming or producing conformity. So while a dog show may look like a beauty pageant, it's not. Dogs are really being compared to each other, and they're being measured how closely they conform to the standard of their particular breed. Why? Because the closer the dog's appearance to the breed standard, the better that dog's ability will be to produce puppies that meet the standard. It's also the reason why mixed breeds or spayed or neutered purebreds are ineligible to compete in conformation. So in general, in short, it is to compare your dog to the standard. So the main points of a dog show are intended to judge a dog against that AKC standard and to select the best dog in the breed that meets the best that best meets the standard. And I'd like to put a little caveat on that. That judge interprets the standards, and how they interpret the standard may be different than how you interpret the standard. I think we've all encountered that particular option. So once your dog is entered in a show, they have to be, first of all, they have to be 6 months or older on the day of the show. I'll talk a little bit more about that later. They have to belong to a recognized breed in the AKC. So the AKC needs to recognize that breed. That dog also needs to be registered with the AKC. So they have to have an AKC number. And as mentioned before, they can't be spayed or neutered. And they should have no disqualifying faults as stated in their breed's parent organization standards. For Mastiffs, there are no disqualifying faults, so we don't have that issue. So let's get into some of the common terminology. The first thing that you have to understand in the dog show is you have to understand classes. So classes are divisions of the dog show used to compare dogs that are similar in ages. So there's a 4 to 6 month class, and hold it, Troy said you have to be 6 months or more. That is true. There is a puppy class. You do not get any points, but you can get points that go towards what the AKC does call a puppy of achievement. Then you'll hear 6 to 9 month, 9 to 12 month. Both of these are considered puppy classes. Then you'll hear 12 to 18 month. And then sometimes in specialties or in other shows, they'll actually split the 12 to 18 month into 12 to 15 and 15 to 18. Some shows will do this, or some specialties will do this because, like I said before, classes are designed so that you're actually judging against similar size aged dogs. And after that, you have open. You have another class called bred by exhibitor. You also have something called American bred. You'll sometimes hear that as AMBRED. And then amateur owner handled. And that's not to be confused with the amateur owner, the owner handled series. And then you'll hear things like veteran classes, sweepstakes, there's no points or ribbons, and other open class divisions. We have it in Mastiffs, and that is you'll hear classes specifically for apricots, brindles. In Great Danes, they have 5 or 6 different colors that they can split into. Boxers. There's a lot of other breeds that they will have these other open class divisions. And then finally, there's the best of breed. So classes are divided, are put together so that similar dogs are competing against each other. What can you win? Everybody loves this. You can win ribbons. And I just listed here, and I'm not going to go through them, but I just listed the AKC does have a standard for the color of the ribbons. When you get to the award of merit, there's not a standard. It can be different colors. And I just wanted to mention that because all the other things that are listed here, if you win first place, that ribbon, according to the AKC, must be blue.
Troy, hey, it's Robin.
Hi, Robin.
I have a question for you really quick. I know the answer, but for the classes, when you're going through the classes and you don't know, I know we discussed it before, but if you're doing 6 to 9 and then 9 to 12 months, when your puppy's hitting that 9 months of age, how do you know what class to put them in?
On the day of the show, so I was going to talk about that later, but on the day of the show, if your dog is 9 months old, they have to be registered in that 9 to 12 month class. Although you may have registered them a month earlier while they were 8 months old, and they would have been in the 6 to 9 month class, you always, the day of the show, what your dog's age will be determines the class that they should be entered in. So one of the questions I always get is, what if, how do I measure, my dog was born on February 29th, and leap year, how do I know when they're 6 months old? So 6 months from that, if you count, March, April, May, June, July, and then the 29th day, July 29th, your dog is considered by the AKC to be 6 months old. Does that answer your question, Robin?
Yes, Troy, it does.
Okay.
Thank you.
So one of the things I've always heard, and it's absolutely true, dogs always go first. There's no equal rights in the AKC world. Dogs always start first. So when a show starts, dogs always enter the ring first, in general. And in general, they always get odd numbers. So if you have a dog show and you see someone has a number 1, I'll put a caveat on this in a second, it's most likely a dog. There are dog shows out there, the National Dog Show for one, where they do not follow the odd, even numbers. So at that show, you can have a dog with the number 4, for example. Then always following the dogs would be the bitches. So the bitches go second, and they should have even numbers. How are numbers assigned? It depends on the superintendent. And what's a superintendent? That's the organization who runs the dog shows and is responsible for reporting the results, recording the winners with the AKC, and they're also responsible for setting up the rings. So I'll talk about that in my very last slide at the very end. But one thing I do want to mention about the superintendents is just the fact that Robin brought up, what happens, if I have I entered my dog by mistake in the 6 to 9 month class, and it's Friday, and I know my dog's going to turn 9 months, and I don't want to be disqualified. What do I do? So on that Friday, the superintendent can also make changes. So you should, if that happens, just a reminder, you can go to the superintendent, usually a day before, and you can ask for that dog or bitch to be moved up into the next class. In general, what happens, they usually don't move your dog into in this case, this example, the 9 to 12 month class. They usually put that dog into the open class. And the reason is that they want to just make sure, they don't want to be although the superintendents, they just they want to make sure that your dog is in the show, but they don't want to make the decision what class and get into that situation. So if that situation happens, they generally move them right up into the open class. Has anybody ever had that happen to them?
Yes, it did. It happened to me.
And sometimes it's aggravating when you have a puppy who's just turning 9 months, and you have to move them up into the open class. But what that usually does is that teaches you a lesson, and it just gives you the background that you have to actually be aware of when your dog turns 9, 12, 15, 18 months old.
Well, to give my example was I was rushing and I hit the wrong class by accident. Another thing that could happen is if you thought you championed your dog and then you go and sign up for another show under Best of Breed, which Troy will go into more, you obviously you're not finished, so you can't compete there. You're going to have to get bumped back down, and they will put you in open whether you're a puppy or not. So
excellent example.
But either way, you did the show.
Troy, I had
else to keep in mind on that one. If you put your dog in the wrong class, say it turned 9 months old on the day of the show, it's actually 6 and up to 9 months. If you have the wrong class and you show them in 6 to 9 that day, they can lose any points they win, and reserve winner's dog or bitch will get the points.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Terry. And I'll actually, I do talk about that later, especially when I talk about the reserve winners.
Yeah, I've had the same thing happen, Troy.
I think we all have had it happen.
Yeah, and my bitch happened to be reserve winner's bitch for a 5-point major. This was 15, 20 years ago. And they found out that the bitch that won didn't move up. Mm-hmm. So my girl got the 5 points.
Oh, okay. And that's what I was going to mention later when I get into reserve. And I think, there's always interesting. And that's, one where you probably shocked.
I was.
Because all of a sudden the notification comes through mail and you're like, you win. And you're like, how did this happen?
Right. And also, I've also been in a situation where my dog, let's say it was a 3-day show, and he entered all 3 shows, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. On Friday, he was 12 months. And on Saturday, he was 13. So that I've seen that happen a lot too. But like you said, you can just go to the superintendent and let them know that they had their birthday and moved up.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for bringing that example up. Let's move on to the next one and talk about just the competition in general. So I've talked a little bit, there's class dogs, there's class bitches, and there's specials. So class dogs and class bitches compete for points to become a champion. Specials are already champions and are competing for additional breed points, all breed points, and specials can only compete in the best in breed class. So as I talked about the classes, each class dog or bitch competes in its own registered class. So, and each class is awarded a 1st through 4th ribbon by the judge. So after each class is shown, so if we go through the 6 to 9, 9 to 12, 12 to 18, open class, all the different classes, after each class is shown and the first place ribbons have been awarded, then all the first place ribbon holders come back in to compete what's known as winner's dog. And if it's the girl, it's going to be the winner's bitch. This is where the points get awarded. So although your dog won a first place ribbon for your 6 to 9 month, where the point gets awarded is in the winner's dog competition. So all the winners come back in and they'll select a winner's dog.
Yeah.
And then the judge will also select what they call a reserve winner's dog.
This is where the points get awarded.
And that's where all the points get awarded. And also that reserve winner's dog, we had the example of, you finished second, and what if that dog was registered in the wrong class or wasn't eligible to compete in that class? The AKC can pull the points awarded to the winner's dog and give it to the reserve winner's dog. And as I said before, you'll get a letter in the mail from the AKC notifying you of this AKC ruling. So although, this is where people say it's a beauty pageant because you get, holy, you're a reserve winner's dog. And also people don't understand that, that dog is important because if the first place dog awarded winner's dog is not able to meet its obligations as being the winner's dog, those points are then awarded to the reserve winner's dog. Now, one of the caveats that I wanted to bring up was that, you might have lost. You didn't win a first place. I said that only first place dogs come back into the ring to compete for winner's dog. That's not absolutely true. So where another dog can come in is after the judge selects the winner's dog and now is going to select the reserves winner's dog. The dog that finished second to the dog that won winner's dog comes back in the ring. They're eligible to be awarded the reserve winner's dog. So this is sometimes where people get a little confused. They'll walk away from a ring and then all of a sudden you'll hear, Terry, you're supposed to be back in the ring. And Terry goes, why? I didn't win first place. And they'll go, because the dog that you lost against just won the winner's dog. So now Terry has that chance to go back in and compete with her dog for that reserve winner's dog.
So basically, you want to wait for the dog from your class. It has to be, or the bitch from your class, if they win winner's dog or bitch. If you're second place in that class, then you have to go back in. So definitely don't walk away from the ring. I did that a bunch in the beginning, and I would always hear my name.
And you're thinking, why is everybody yelling your number or your name? And then you find out afterwards you were supposed to go back in. And it's not that you win points for reserve winner's dog, but there is that possibility, as we pointed out, that dog that won winner's dog may not be able to meet all the obligations of being the winners. So then I did mention this already, but the same process occurs for the females until the winner's bitch is chosen. Then after a winner's dog and a winner's bitch is selected, they're eligible to compete in what is known as best of breed. So best of breed is where the champions compete. But I just said that you can also have the best of the winner's bitch and the winner's dog, and that is true. In general, best of breed is where the champions compete to win points for recognition and to get additional confirmation titles. And I've listed a few here. And the number of points and the number of champions that must be beat to achieve a level are detailed on the following slide. So as you're competing in best in breed, there's what we call a point, a championship level. And so I've listed out, just for reference, I'm not going to go through them all, but to become a champion, you have to get 9 or 15 points. They have to have 2 majors, and they have to be awarded by different judges. So you'll hear people, and I'll talk about what a major is in a second.
I have to remember to ask him if he's going to just.
And then, is there a question? Nope. Okay. And then there's titles such as Grand Champion, that's GCH. And then you get all these different levels of Grand Champions, all the way up to Grand Champion Platinum 5, which in Mastiffs, I don't think anybody's ever achieved a Grand Champion Platinum 5. I think they've reached 2 or 3, I'm not sure. But I've never seen a Mastiff actually in 4 or 5. So once you go into best in breed, what's awarded? So you'll hear some terms, BOB, Bob. It stands for best in breed or variety. BOS, best of opposite sex to the best of breed winner. Select, there will be a select dog and a select bitch. And that depends if there is other champions competing. You'll also hear of people winning award of merits and best of winners. And let me get into more of that in just a second. So a question to the group, and I think this is a pretty smart group. Do you get a point if you get a first place ribbon?
No.
That's correct. That's a kind of a trick question, because if you win your class, you still don't win. You have to be the winner's dog or winner's bitch. Also, can a class dog win best of breed?
Yes.
Once again, I thought this was a good group, and that's absolutely true. And why is that? Because that class dog, as long as they won winner's dog, they're eligible to compete in best in breed. And now they're eligible to win best in breed. And I think a lot of people who are on this call may have had dogs that actually were class dogs and actually won best in breed against specials. So I talked about what's a major? Yeah, I mentioned it in how we were counting points. And a major is pretty simply just one thing. Your win has to be worth 3 or more points. That's it. There's nothing more. So how do we count points? You'll hear things where, I got 1 point, I got 2 points, I got 5 points. And so we'll talk about counting points. So we'll talk very briefly here about the schedule of points. So each year, the AKC determines the schedule of points. It's usually effective for the second week in May. That can deviate from year to year, but it's generally in May. And all the points for all the different breeds for different areas of the country are placed in a division. And then the AKC within the schedule of points publishes the number of points needed to be awarded, the number of competitors that are needed to award a certain point level. Does anybody know how the AKC determines the number of dogs in a breed to get a major?
How many dogs were shown the previous year in that division?
Absolutely. There's actually a fairly sophisticated process behind it. And I actually have a slide coming up. I'm not going to talk about it because I just wanted people to be aware that there is some math behind that. And they look at the previous year and they determine how many dogs became, how many majors did they have? And what's a major? 3 or more points awarded to a dog or a bitch. So in each division, you'll see, except for the states of Alaska, Hawaii, and Puerto Rico, there's a schedule that's actually published on the AKC site for the schedule of points. So here I talked about the sophisticated, and you can see the percentages, and you can, if you ask for the presentation, you'll be able to see how they do that. It's listed on the AKC site. And here I'm just going to mention there's different divisions. Florida, so the Mastiff Club in Florida is going to have a specialty on June 16th through the 20th. Florida is in Division 4. If I was talking about Colorado, I'd be looking at Division 6. So I just listed out for everybody just so they had that, a listing of what the divisions are in the AKC. And so the AKC, it's on the AKC website. And one thing I do want to mention is the importance of when you're looking up your point schedule. And if you want to find this, go to akc.org and type in their search area, point schedule, and it should come up with the point schedule for 2021. It's important to know the year. And I've seen this happen where people find a point schedule on the akc.org website, and it's the point schedule for 2019. Each year, the point schedule is reevaluated, so it may or may not be the same. So just be aware that, especially in the month of May, if you're looking at the right point schedule. So I want to talk about an example here for the Mastiff Club of Florida. As I mentioned, we're in Division 4. And here is the 2021 little excerpt from the akc.org website of the point schedule for Mastiffs. And as you can see, it's quite dull this year for Mastiffs. It's, can anybody tell me how many bitches it takes to get a 3-point major that I have to beat?
4.
And the question to the group, does that include the bitch that wins? Winner's bitch.
Yes, it does.
Absolutely. So I think that's where a lot of the difficulty comes in, is people can go look at the point schedule, but the difficulty becomes, how do I count? Say if I have a bitch, do I count? And you do absolutely count. So if there are 4 bitches present and you win, it's a 3-point major because there were 4 bitches entered per the point schedule. So I had an example going on, and can anybody tell me now? This is for Division 5, and I asked for a 3-point major. How many dogs do I need to beat in this division?
6. There has to be 6 shown.
There has to be, and that's the key. There has to be 6 shown. So if I gave an example, there was 13 dogs entered in Division 5 for Mastiffs. It's a major, right?
Could be.
That's exactly right. It could be. So where's the trick? You have to look at disqualifications, absences, and excusals. They don't count towards the schedule of points. So if
Breed.
excuse me?
Neither do specials.
Neither do specials. That is absolutely right. So, just like I mentioned before, when, with class dogs and class bitches, they're competing in their classes to become a champion. So the key here is that you're only counting the dogs that are competing for championship points. So if you're a dog, you are counting only the dogs. And I don't want to talk about this slide, but I mentioned disqualifications, excusals. The AKC has, and this is just a snippet, many different ways that a dog can be disqualified or excused. So going back to that example where I said there's 13 dogs entered, and this is back in Division 4, where it only takes 4 dogs to win. Even if there's 13 dogs entered, we could have disqualifications or absences. So an absence is that dog just didn't show. They were registered in the dog show, they didn't show. And a disqualification, I had that in the prior screen, and that is the judge can disqualify a dog for, for example, going after another dog is one of the disqualifications. So there's, I'm not going to get into all that, but in the end, what it is that you have to actually count the dogs that are there that the winner's dog has beaten. And those are only the dogs that are in the classes that are not in best of breed. They cannot be the specials, except, and I'll talk about that when, in just a minute, in a later slide. But before that, we talked about best of winners and for the dogs and the bitches. In the dog show world, you hear people talk about a crossover. And that's one of the things when I first entered into competition that I received a crossover. And I was like, what are they talking about? I crossed over. That is just plain and simply when the best of winners gets awarded, the winner's dog or winner's bitch gets awarded best of winners. And when that happens, they get awarded the points that the other one had achieved per the point schedule in the show. So I'll get into that in just a second because I want to talk a little bit about that. So one of the things I want to ask just the group, what if your class dog or bitch goes breed? How many points do they get? So we had mentioned that specials don't count, but they do count if your class dog or class bitch takes breed. When you take breed and you're a class dog, you count all the dogs that you beat. So if there are 2 champions, specials, and they're dogs, and your class dog wins, those are counted in how many points you will get. So for example, I'll give you just a real quick example. You're the only class dog. You go best of winners, you go winner's dog. So you get to go into best of breed, and then you win best of breed. And there were 2 special dogs and 14 special bitches. You only count the dogs when you are a class dog. That is a non-champion. So you would only count your dog and the 2 champions. So that's 3 that you would count for how many points you would get for taking best of breed. But you're like, I beat the other 14 specials, bitches. They do not count until you are a champion. So there's a different way to count points when you are a champion and when you are just a class dog or bitch. And I talked about that. And what happens if a class bitch goes best of opposites sex, for example, or a class dog? So your class bitch takes best of opposite sex to breed. How you count that is it's the same way as if you took best of breed. You count only the bitches. You count all the females that you beat, and that can include specials. Does everybody understand that?
Very confusing.
Yes.
It is confusing, I will admit. But the key here is that when you're not a special, when you're not a champion, you are only counting the sex of the dog that wins. And that's the key right there if you're not a champion. When you get to be a champion, it's a little different. And I'll talk about that in the next 2 slides. And we talked about this, what if on the 3rd day of the show, your dog turns 12? Yeah, what class do you have to, should we enter? We talked about that. Yeah, you have to enter that dog in the 12 to 15 month. And I think Terry Perkins mentioned that it was the 12, when your dog turns, when you're entered in the 9 to 12 month class, it's 9 up to 12 months. The next class is 12 months up to 18 months. So just as we just said, this sounds insane. But once your dog becomes a champion of record, the points are counted differently. And I kind of alluded to that. So if I take best of breed and I'm a champion, I count all the dogs and all the bitches that were entered in the show in that variety, in that breed, competing for the day. So they have to be present and they cannot be disqualified. So you're counting everybody you beat if you are special. And like I said, if I take best of breed, if I take a Bob, and I do not, I'm not a special, I am not a champion, it's counted differently. So best of opposite sex, if you take a best of opposite to the best of breed, you count only the sex of the dog going opposite sex towards your points. And then for select dog, which is really second place to the best of breed and best of opposite sex. So if you take select dog or select bitch, you only count the dogs of the same sex who competed that day, but you have to subtract the one dog you lost to. So if you take a select dog and there were 15 special dogs entered, and you take a select, you beat 14 specials that day. You beat 14 other dogs. So you would count and look at the point schedule, and you would look at the schedule and look for how many does 14 get in that division. You also hear something about an AOM, an award of merit. And I like to say you were close, but you don't get any points. Award of merits are usually awarded at specialty shows. And just a shout out to the Mastiff Club of Florida. We do have 3 specialty shows coming up in June, and we will have award of merits. And that is if we have enough dogs entered, because an award of merit, although you don't get any points, the judge, there is a formula that is used to determine the number of award of merits that can be awarded by a judge. And then you'll also hear, or actually see on sites, you'll see best of breed owner handled, and you'll see that listed in the catalog as BOBOH. And that's a separate competition. And I will talk about a little bit about the owner handled in a few slides. So the best of breed has been selected and the show's over for most of the participants, right? So the judge goes back to the record book and turns it over to the superintendent. And now where does the best of breed winner go? They go on to what they call groups. There's 7 group winners that go on to compete in best in show. So I think the best way to show this is on this slide. And we talked about this briefly. We have all these dog classes and bitch classes, And the first place in each class goes to compete for the winner's dog. Out of that, they choose a reserve dog. We talked about that. The winner's dog and the winner's bitch then go into best of breed or variety. You'll hear both terms used. And then from that group, we will select best of breed, best of winners. And the best of winners is selected between the winner's dog and the winner's bitch. And then the best of opposite sex, a select dog and a select bitch. And then from there, whoever wins best of breed then can go on to the group that their breed is in. So if you're a mastiff, you're going into working group and you're competing against 30 other breeds for just like I said, first place, second place, third place, and fourth place ribbon. And the first place ribbon goes on to compete in best in show. So if I really wanted to sum up with what a dog show is, it's actually pretty simple. I mean, it's a simple single elimination contest. When you enter, you have to beat everybody in your class. You have to beat everybody in winner's dog or winner's bitch. You have to beat everybody in best of breed. You have to beat everybody in working group. And then if you're going to win best in show, you've beat everybody in that show. So when it comes down to it, it is just a single elimination competition. So all this stuff I talked about, is great, but you just have to keep in mind that it's one dog wins. And so when they compete, only one dog will win first. So I wanted to talk about owner handled. It's the same type of competition. So in each breed, if the AKC has this as a competition, and it's not at every dog show, they will have the owner handled series. And so the owner handled series goes and competes the same way as the regular AKC dog show, except that now they're only competing against the dogs who won in their breed the owner handled best of breed title. So the first place winner, and there is no second, you get a first place winner for owner handled, and they compete in the groups, and then they can compete for the best in breed owner handled. But the point schedules are different, and those are listed on the AKCC site. And I don't want to take the time to talk about that, but I do want to say, I know that this is confusing, but I hope that, maybe having this presentation might help as a reference. But remember, the judge is actually the king of the ring. And one of the things that a judge can do is they can withhold ribbons. So, respect the judge. It's not an easy job. People go, well, it's easy. If you've ever tried to judge dogs quickly, and they get approximately 2 minutes per dog to judge and come up with who best meets the standard. And as I mentioned, it's the standard on how they interpret it. So, be nice to the judge and understand that it's not an easy job, and that their interpretation of the standard might be different from yours. And one thing is, if there's any questions that you have, especially, in Florida, we're very friendly in Florida. Just ask somebody at the show. If you're confused on how points are being, how many points your dog or bitch wins at a show, or if you got any points for winning a class, just ask somebody. In general, you never know. That person that you ask may turn out to be a good friend in the future. This is actually my last slide. And I do want to say that there are, I talked about superintendents. One of the superintendents that has a great website is InfoDog. They're referred to as MBF. They have judges directories. They have the point schedules. They have just about everything you need But if you want the Bible when it comes to the dog shows, go to the akc.org website. It may be difficult, and over the years, it's gotten a little better with some of their upgrades, but it can be difficult to find exactly what you want on the akc.org website. Believe me, it's there. It just may be buried about 100 pages deep. Also, you might use Anafrio, Foy Trent, Ba Ray, Jim Rao, Jack Bradshaw. I've got a whole bunch mentioned here. Some specialize in certain regions of the country. Some specialize in breeds. But these are superintendents, and they also have websites. And these websites are a place that after a dog show is finished, you can go and see the final results. Who won winner's dog, who won winner's bitch, who took best of breed. Finally, I want to mention Canine Chronicles. And I think a lot of you out there have heard of Canine Chronicles, but it's a site that's useful for showing breed standings. I mentioned all breed points. These are really for dogs that are being what we called campaigned. They're usually out with a handler, or they're going to as many shows as they can because they're trying to get as many points to become the top in that breed. And I also want to mention there's a dog show hotline. So if you're having trouble entering dogs, so when you enter a dog, this presentation wasn't really how to enter your dog, but the key to entering your dog is to know what class they will be in at the time the show runs. So for the Mastiff Club of Florida, if your dog was born in June, you have to be aware that, is your dog a special? Doesn't matter. They are only entered in best of breed. But if you're having any problems entering, I just wanted to mention that a lot of the professional handlers and non-professional handlers use entry on time. And I show a number there. So now I'll open it up for questions. I hope this was a little informative. Does anybody have questions, or, I know I covered a lot and I'm not going to pretend I didn't, but there is a lot of information to disseminate. So I'll open it up. Any questions?
Will you be distributing this presentation to the people on this who have attended?
Judy, I do have your email. Yes, I can, and I will.
Excellent. Thank you.
Troy, this is Cindy. I guess one thing I used to do is I would go to this at the end of the day. If I won something, I would go to the super's sheets and make sure that the win had been recorded correctly, especially if I was close to being, the dog was being close to being a champion. And it can save you a big headache if something's been recorded incorrectly. And believe me, it happens. That's another reason to keep your ribbons, because you may need them later to prove your win. I don't know if anybody else has had issues with better. That's what I used to do.
Yeah, and that excellent point, Cindy. And also I want to mention, you mentioned something that I didn't say, and that is, and we kind of mentioned it. I think Terry Perkins might have mentioned it, and that is, sometimes a dog is moved up too early. So, like you said, if you check the books at the end of the day, the superintendent has that, and you might find out that there was somebody disqualified that you were unaware of, but you thought you had gotten that 3-point major that you needed to move your dog up to be a champion. And so you were going to, what we call, move up that dog. That's taking a class dog who becomes a champion and moving them into best of breed for the next day. So it's important to know how many are there. And excellent point, Cindy, is that, you can check at the end of the day at the superintendent's desk. And it's usually got a large sign at every show that you go to. And they're usually really friendly. And a lot of times they'll have those books sitting right out, and you can look and you can count how many dogs actually competed against your dog and make sure that that point is correct. And then if your dog has championed out, right, they've become champion, they've gotten their majors, they've gotten their 15 points, and you want to move them up into the best of breed competition, then you can do that at the superintendent's desk. So does anybody know why you'd want to move your dog up? from your class, from say the open class to the best of breed class?
To get
Fine.
a group.
To start getting your points for your grand championships.
That is absolutely right. So your dog might be the one that's going to take best of breed, but if they come out, one of the things that you have to realize is that once you become a champion, the points are counted different for best of breed. So if you move them up and they're registered as, they're now recognized as a champion, the points are different. So if you don't move your dog up and they win best of breed, congratulations, but you didn't, in the example I gave earlier, there were 13 other bitches that were entered who were specials. And if you are not a champion, they don't award you the points based upon, being a champion of record at the time, winning best of breed. So that's one of the points I want to make. Any other questions out there? And I'd give me some feedback. I'd love some feedback if this was too short. Did I need more graphics? Anything like that would be helpful for future things.
Troy, one of the things you did skip and is very important in dog shows with low counts is the fact that if there is one class dog and one class bitch entered, you can still earn a point even though there are no other dogs of your sex at that show. It was a new rule that recently came out about a year, 2 years ago at AKC that you will win winner's dog and winner's bitch for no points. But when you compete for best of winners in the breed ring, best of winners will earn 1 point.
That's correct. That was a 2019 decision that was made. Thank you for bringing that up. And I did not cover that. So once again, if there's only one class dog, one class bitch, but your point schedule says that to get a point, you need 3 dogs and 3 bitches, but you take best of winners, you are still awarded 1 point.
And can I just add to that? For those of us in Florida who may be discouraged, I have spent the entire last year winning 1 point at a time, but now we're only 2 points away.
Do you have your majors out of the way?
I do.
Fantastic. Those, and I think people have been in the dog. I've only been showing dogs now for, just over 10 years. Maybe a little less than that. But you always hear people who are chasing points. And Chantel, it sounds like you're chasing points.
Yep.
Well, we're hoping you the best of luck, and I'm hoping that you win on Thursday at the specialty show.
That would be awesome.
Because there is, I think, a special award given
I'd like
out.
to win on Wednesday, just so you know.
Can we put our orders in for winning now?
You can
Yeah,
put
right?
your orders in, but we may not be able to read them.
Put them in an envelope.
They'll be in an envelope, and we'll open it up after the show and
Right?
see if they worked. So I really do appreciate everybody joining. And let's see, how long did this? I don't even know. I'm checking my phone. Oh, just under an hour. So I will be distributing this to anybody that wants this. And unfortunately, I was hoping there'd be a little more turnout, but we didn't give it a lot of time. And I think the next seminar, we're going to plan it out in, I think we're thinking August, but August is a hard month because a lot of people are on
Well, yeah,
vacation.
August has a transition into September. Just because of my business, I see a lot where they're trying to get all their vacation time in right before the children start school. So some schools start earlier than others too. So usually September is like right after the holiday.